So it seems like most people feel like if you're gonna cut and you're gonna lose weight, you just have to accept you're gonna get weak. There's nothing you can do about it. And honestly, it's not true. And while it's certainly more difficult to get stronger while you're losing body fat, it doesn't mean it's impossible. In fact, many years ago when I was a power lifter, I actually put on over 100 pounds onto my 3 lift total while going from 210 pounds down to around 178 pounds. So today I'm gonna show you everything you need to know to help with strength while in a cutting phase. So one of the most important things to keep your strength or even possibly build strength during a cut is to make sure you don't lose weight too fast. I know this is a recurring theme for me, and it's just so important to be patient and not rush the process for many reasons, and strength is definitely one of them. The slower you lose weight, the higher you're going to be able to keep your calories, the more energy you're going to have, the less muscle you're potentially going to lose, the more you're going to be able to keep hormones, including anabolic hormones, in a better place. Your body is just going to function and perform better on higher calories and not being in a drastic calorie deficit. If you've watched pretty much any of my previous videos about weight loss, I'm always talking about keeping your pace of weight loss under about 1% of your weight on average per week, not only to help with retaining your muscle and hormones and metabolism and everything else, but it's also going to play a significant role in keeping or even building strength. So if we look at my example in my big cut from 210 to 178 pounds, that took me about 11 months. That's an average of about 2/3 of a pound per week. That's well under 1%. In fact, that's not even 0.5%. Now, I'm not saying you should take your cut that slow, and there's of course positives and negatives to this, but as a power lifter at the time, strength was super important for me, so that was something I prioritized during this. And another thing I did during that time was take diet breaks, especially going into competitions. In fact, at the time, we're talking like, I don't even know, like maybe 2014 or so, diet breaks weren't really even much of a thing at that point. Like they kind of were, but they weren't really known and we didn't have much data on it. I wasn't doing it because, okay, diet breaks are what you're supposed to do. It was because I wanted to be able to perform at my meets. So a month before I'd have a meet, I would bring my calories up to around maintenance so that I could be as strong as possible for those meets and then go back into a deficit afterwards. And it just so happened to really help the process go extremely well, including with strength and my overall results. So that's another strategy you could take. Make sure you're taking frequent diet breaks, utilizing things like consecutive refeeds, where you're keeping your calories higher and you're giving your body a break and helping it perform. Another thing to consider while you look at strength is understanding that, first of all, muscle and strength, they don't necessarily have a direct correlation together. I mean, yes, a bigger muscle has more potential to be a stronger muscle, but they're not one of the same. And a lot of the strength adaptations you have are actually neural as well as skill-based. What I mean by that is to get stronger at a movement, you do the movement more, you get better and more efficient at that movement, and you have these motor patterns that your body now learns and gets more efficient with, so you get better at moving the weight from point A to point B, but it's not just muscle. You also have to understand when it comes to strength, it's not just about the number on the bar. There's a difference between absolute strength and relative strength. Absolute strength is the total amount on the bar, how much you can lift. So if we're talking about the squat and you were able to squat 300 pounds while weighing 200 pounds, that's a 300-pound absolute strength squat. However, let's just say you lose 20 pounds, now you weigh 180 pounds and you're still squatting 300 pounds. Has your squat stagnated? No, you now weigh 20 pounds less, so your relative strength has gone up and you've technically gotten stronger, and that's why they have weight classes in any type of weightlifting competition. So if you think back to my example, getting over 100 pounds on my powerlifting total while losing 32 pounds, my absolute strength went up still, but my relative strength went up through the roof if you look at like a Wilks formula. Now, another thing you can do for strength while cutting is make sure you don't change up your training significantly because you're cutting. This whole use high reps to lose weight, low reps to build, it just doesn't make any sense. The way you train is the way you train. What I mean by that is however you train to build muscle is how you train to keep the muscle and keep your strength while you're in a dieting phase. So you don't want to just start changing everything. You certainly don't want to start just doing circuit training because you're going to burn more calories through it. No, keep your training relatively the same. Make adjustments through nutrition and cardio to either put you into a surplus to build or into a deficit to cut. Now, I'm not saying that high reps are bad and you shouldn't do them. In fact, all rep ranges have a purpose and they kind of work in tandem together in a way. This is something I've touched on before. Stay tuned to the end and I'll show you. But the point is, if you want to get stronger, you have to keep lifting heavy. Another thing I recommend when it comes to your cardio is don't do the high intensity stuff. I'm not saying this is a horrible thing or that you can't include any, but if you're in a calorie deficit and you're trying to get stronger and you're absolutely blasting yourself with intense cardio and you're running yourself into the ground and your body can't recover, you're not going to be able to perform very well in the gym and your strength is more likely to take a hit. So you want to utilize your precious energy for the much more important training than crushing yourself with cardio. So instead, do lower intensity forms. Even just regular walking is super helpful for helping put you in a deficit without running yourself into the ground. Now, a couple other things you need to keep in mind when it comes to increasing strength while in a cutting phase are things like training experience, how lean you're gonna get, and just understand, like, yes, it's possible to increase strength. I'm not saying you can't do it, but depending on your starting position and a lot of factors, we're not necessarily trying to for sure increase, but at least minimize the reductions in it. And it's going to be much easier for this to happen the more of a beginner you are. If you've never really lifted before and you start lifting weights now while in a cutting phase, well, you're going to build strength like crazy because your body's going to adapt to this really fast and you're going to get those kind of like newbie gains. And building strength while losing body fat, not only is it possible, it's going to be relatively easy, honestly. Whereas if you've been training for decades, it's going to be a lot harder to do. And also the same thing with how lean you're going to get. If you're only looking to drop a little bit of weight and you don't have a long ways to go and it's not going to be this big thing, you're probably not going to have big struggles with losing strength. Where it's more likely to start losing strength is when you start to get really lean. Like if you're a bodybuilder and you're trying to get stage lean and you're getting down to single digit body fat percentages, at that point, it's almost inevitable you're going to start losing strength, but you have a different goal. Strength isn't the goal at that point. The goal is aesthetics and getting to elite conditioning for a look on the stage. But that's not the same as a powerlifter or someone who's just trying to get in better shape and trying to have fun in the gym. But certainly the more extreme you go with getting lean, the less likely it is for you to be able to gain strength. Now, when I was talking about rep ranges, this is widely misunderstood in terms of how to utilize rep ranges and what certain rep ranges do what in terms of building muscle, building strength. So I have a video up top I'd like you to check out next that will run through some science that shows how to utilize different rep ranges for your own training programming. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead. And I'll see you in that other video.